Podcasting from Ohio, the Buckeye State, this is I'm Married to an African. Being married is hard work, but try being married to someone from a different culture. It's like trying to turn around on a one-way street. So let me help you navigate around all the obstacles. This is your host, Dehadi C, a queen who fell in love overseas in Dakar. Now, years later, 2 kids, a bunch of jobs and ups and downs, we're all still here together. Hello, and welcome back to my second episode. That's kind of fun to say. Second episode. I'm really going to be consistent, so let's just get right into the discussion. Last week's focus was in the beginning, and thank you to everyone who left comments, and thank you to everyone who is continuing to listen. I really do enjoy doing things like this, so just keep your suggestions coming, keep those comments coming in as well, and I will continue to share. Okay, today's topic is all about the must-have conversation, the must-have convos that you must have with your spouse or your significant other. One of the major things that I regret as a younger adult was just not having these conversations, just automatically assuming that things were going to fall into place or that he knew me well enough to assume or interpret my emotions or, just understand where I'm coming from, whether I would agree with something or not. And he had no clue because we never, ever sat down and discussed it. So one of the things that I think is most important is discussing spirituality and faith. Another thing, number 2 would be conflict resolution. 3 would be finances. 4 would be children and parenting. And 5 would be commitment. Okay? So let's just dive into spirituality and faith. Everyone that marries someone from a different country doesn't necessarily have the same faith. And even if they don't have the same faith, maybe that individual doesn't want to convert. Maybe they are fine and satisfied with the faith that they are currently practicing, which is perfectly fine, right? But what we need to gain understanding of in having that must-have conversation, we have to decide what works, okay? Which means you need to talk to your significant other about their religion. Put your notions and your teachings to the side and just gain understanding. I know I said that in the last podcast, but it's so important because religion is at the core of most individuals. It's the core of who they are. It is why they do what they do. It is their foundation. And so you want to remain respectful. You want to remain positive, but you want to know the ins and outs of what works for this person and what they're expecting of you, not being of the same faith. Okay. So, also don't stress the differences. It's like you believe in this and I believe in that and we're doomed. No, not necessarily. Allow that person to grow spiritually within their spirituality and allow yourself to grow spiritually within your spirituality, and don't feel like, the things that you say are negative or the ways that you feel are negative. It's not about identifying differences. It's about respecting the fact that you both are on a path to growth. And if this is the spirituality that gives you the resources and the strength and the understanding to continue to grow and be a great person in life, then great. Who cares what it's called? Allow that person to continue to do what they know. Now, the other end to that is it's going to come with judgment from family. Okay. And I just feel like that's another podcast, but definitely don't stress your differences. Find balance. There is balance in having different religions. Oftentimes my husband and I have friends or whatnot who have different faith, or we have friends who are married of different faith. And in conversation, there's always like this balance. There's always like this thing that kind of is visible in a lot of religions. And so find that and hold on to that. Let go of the differences and find the balance. Find ways that you and your significant other can practice both of your faiths together without creating an issue or negativity, for lack of better words. And then lastly, know when to stop talking. Oftentimes when people talk about religion or spirituality and faith, they talk so much that they don't even recognize that they have offended someone or they have said too much. Know when to stop talking. Whatever your code word is, use it. Maybe it's pineapples. Pineapples, you know what I'm saying? Like, okay, pineapples, bruh. That's it. Like, I think you're going too far at this point, because for whatever reason, when people talk about religion, they get very aggressive. They become angry. When you think about it, it's like religion is supposed to make you so happy and balanced and grounded. So, don't let it get to that level. Have a code word, know when to stop talking. And this is why this is a much needed, necessary, important conversation, because what you don't want to do is attack someone for their faith or undermine someone because of their faith, right? All right, let's get into number 2, conflict resolution. Took me a minute to get this down, but I feel like I am seasoned, not a pro, but I definitely feel like I'm seasoned in just having conflict resolution. My husband and I, when we used to argue a lot, we used to argue a lot. Woof. So when we used to argue, it just would go on forever. It would just go on for days. There was no resolution. We would definitely have conflict. And then if something else came up, we would still be angry from the last conversation that didn't go my way or didn't go his way. So conflict resolution is very important. And it typically takes one person to kind of model the behavior, and then the other person picks up. In my case, I feel like it was me, but I'm pretty sure he probably feels like it was him. But I used to be like, you know what? I'm not arguing with you. I'm not going to do this with you. I'm going to go to sleep. I'm going to wake up very well, very happy, very well rested. I'm going to take my behind to work. I'm going to make this money. I'm going to come home. I'm going to cook for you. I'm going to take care of you, because underneath all of this, I love you. You are getting on my nerves, but that was my conflict resolution. And honestly, what it did was it allowed all of our issues to kind of come to a stop, a standstill, and not, stand in front of us, because sometimes your conflicts just kind of rule your life. And it's like, no. I'm in control of what's going on here. So first things first, how do you address conflict? Figure out how your spouse or significant other handles arguments. If they're the kind of person that's a tick, tick, boom, don't do it. Don't do it. And it's not because you want to match somebody and you want to show them that you could do it too. It's just, it gets you nowhere. Okay. It gets you absolutely nowhere. So definitely discuss, how one another handles issues. This is what I don't like to hear. I don't like things to be repetitive. You didn't, I heard you the first time. Let me process. Okay. So, or someone doesn't like yelling, or someone doesn't like, being petty. Whatever it is, address how you're going to handle conflict, okay? Also, address how long you're going to discuss it. Me, personally, I let it go. It happened 24 hours ago. Let's move forward, please. Because one thing I cannot do is go in the past and unchange what I said, what you did, you have to learn how to let stuff go. So again, it's clear my conflict resolution is I'm going to give it 24 hours. And then tomorrow's a new day and we'll start over. And I'm not going to say I'm perfect. When things happen, I will say things like, hey, you did that before. But when I say that, my husband is so smart, emphasis on smart, that he will then remind me what I said. And you see, it's the merry-go-round. So I try to give it 24 hours and I let it go, because it really doesn't do anything well for any part of your body, your brain, your emotions, your heart. I mean, you just can't focus and move forward. You thinking about it when you're supposed to be, trying to have fun and enjoy yourself with your mate, or even without your mate. When you're hanging out with your girlfriends, it's usually like all over your face. So give yourself 24 hours, you and your mate, or determine how long you're going to discuss something. Sometimes things are really intense and it takes a little bit longer. So, I respect that. I just respect, good communication, because, the negative communication does not bring resolution, and that's what we want. And then lastly, know when to let someone assist. Whew. And let me tell you, pick the right person, because the wrong person will have your shit all jacked up. Okay, don't go to Nene, who is about to be turned up, on God, okay, and holding on to every little last word and then repeating it to you when you're clearly over it. Also, don't go to a family member who might then spread it, to other family members and then just constantly be worried about the fact that are y'all in the midst of, of a divorce. Find someone who is neutral. Find someone who is caring. Find someone who really loves both of you together. And that's what they really want, is for you to stay together. But also don't abuse this person. Don't bring this person your drama every single day, right? Because they cannot assist you because now they are fatigued and tired. But find someone who can assist. I know back in the day, my husband had a friend, who I would call, and I would call him sparingly, but this would be like the issue, like the biggest, like petty stuff. Nah, whatever. I'll holler at my girlfriend. But if it was something that was like just really, really, really unnerving, I would say something to him, or he would say something to my husband, or I would call his aunt. I would call his mom. Look, I would call his sister. But again, I did not abuse these lines. I definitely used them sparingly. And when I ever talked to them outside of that conversation, they were always pleasant. They was always like, hey, it's good to hear from you, blah, 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 that kind of thing. But you definitely need an outlet. You definitely need someone to share information with, especially if your spouse approves of that individual, because oftentimes they want this to be resolved just as much as you do. They don't want to argue and fight, but when it's necessary, have someone to come in and assist. All right. Number 3, finances. Ooh, child. Finances. Now, remember, my husband came to the United States, and when he came, I had just graduated college. So I was broke. But a lot of the financial responsibility fell on me because he had to take some time to get his affairs in order so that he could work. So there was a lot of financial stress and strain on myself, but for an adult to not be able to take care of themselves, there's equal amounts of strain and stress because he's a grown man. I'm sure he wanted to take care of himself at the time and didn't want to ask me for nothing. That's fair. So finances for us at the very beginning were very, very rough. It was a climb up a mountain going the wrong way. You know what I'm saying? So we was walking backwards trying to go up. Anyway, so yeah, just understanding finances, understanding what, break down for each other, what the monthly costs are, like sometimes I think people don't really understand, like, no. Don't be like, I got this. Down to the dollars and the cents. Let each other know what you pay for. I mean, I think that that's fair to let everyone know, like, this is what's going on in our home. Okay. And then how are we going to make this fair for both parties, especially if both people are working? One person doesn't want to pay everything. And then you need to have balance, so if someone gets paid more, should that person pay a little bit more or a couple more bills than the other person? Those are all things that you need to talk about, because I think that people just automatically assume people are going to go in 50-50, and everybody doesn't think that way. Everyone is not in agreement with that. Also discuss fun money. The money that you get to buy your clothes and your stuff like that with, because that always comes up in arguments. If you wasn't busy buying them lace front wigs, if you wasn't busy buying all them shoes and all this other stuff, then we would be okay. So, I mean, it's a touchy subject because it's yours. You made it. But understand that when you marry someone, what's yours is theirs and what's theirs is yours. And so even if you're not giving them something specifically, I think it's out of respect. It's respectful to let them in on, this is how I'm taking care of the home. And then whatever I do with this is mine. This is considered my fun money. Okay. I'm please don't be confused. I'm not saying that you got to break down everything you purchase, but I am saying that make sure that the home front is taken care of, because what happens often is people become upset with where money is going, feeling as if this isn't being taken care of first, i.e., when they send money home. I've had a lot of friends who are like, and he keeps sending all this money home, and that's why we ain't got. Point proven. Sit down and talk about finances. Sit down and say, okay, so this is what you got left over. Whatever you do with that is yours. But I just don't expect for you to be asking me for X, Y, and Z if you handling your business. Okay. And that runs hand in hand with savings. Save money together and save money independently, separately. That's just my little tidbit. Do with it what you want. But I'm just saying, I have a little rainy day fund for me because I need that. I'm a whole woman out here and I don't know what's going to come. And because I'm independent, I don't want to ask him every time I need something. I want to make sure that I'm good too. I want to make sure that I can take care of me too. It's beautiful when a man takes care of you, but it's even more beautiful when you take care of yourself. And that's just my opinion, and I'm sticking to it. All right, number 4, children and parenting. We had our child really early, and it hit me like a tidal wave. I did not understand the expectations. I was not prepared for all of the adornment and jewelry that my infant baby was going to be wearing. And a lot of it was cute, and with some things I was just like, why do he got this necklace on, right? So anyway, get to know all the 411 about raising children and birth and pregnancy from someone in your significant other's culture. It is important. For example, my husband's culture, they don't do baby showers and they don't talk about names. They don't even talk about gender until the baby is here after 7 days. And that's their culture. And I respect that. And it was hard for me because when I got pregnant, I wanted to tell everyone. And he was like, babe, don't do that. Don't do that. And so we had some issues when my son was probably about 10 months and he was still breastfeeding. I'm like, look, I am exhausted. This boy is getting on my nerves. He's chewing up my boobs. And my husband was like, well, can you try a little bit longer? They typically breastfeed for 2 years in our culture. And I'm like, honey, listen, I'm working at 8 to 5. Okay. And then I'm up all day and night, letting this little boy, just be a parasite. So just to ease the conversation, just to avoid any issues, even if you're not pregnant, even if you're wanting to get pregnant, hell, even if you've already had children, it's always a discussion that is necessary. What does this look like in your culture? This is what it looks like in my culture. What are you definitely not wanting to do with our children? And, share your non-negotiables. Maybe it's spanking, maybe it's yelling, maybe it's co-sleeping, maybe it's not. Maybe it's all of those. Have the conversation so that you're not hit with a tidal wave, during pregnancy or once your child is born. You want to be able to understand everything that person kind of thinks about or automatically assumes that you'll understand, and vice versa. Okay? All right. And then finding common ground in parenting. Find some common ground in parenting. Being married is not just me accepting your culture or you accepting my culture. Sometimes it's creating your own kind of new culture, something that you and your spouse understand and it works in your home, and it might look crazy to other people, but it works. If that works, do it. If you guys creating your own little structure works, do it. And then once you're outside of your home, to appease his family, you do something else, or to appease her family, he does something else. That's fine too. I don't necessarily think it's lying. For me, it's more like an extra layer of protection. You're out of my business because you think what you see is what it is. But when we go home, it's different. And that's okay. It's not a lie. It's not someone, putting on for someone else. It's just saying this is what works for us. And it's definitely none of your business. Okay? That will, allow you guys to not have to deal with answering all the questions from both sides about how this, why he didn't, that kind of thing. All right. And then lastly, number 5, commitment. What does commitment look like? I know that there are some cultures that allow for multiple wives. What does this commitment look like to you and your spouse specifically? What does cheating look like to you and your spouse specifically? What does divorce look like to you and your spouse specifically? These are questions that you need to ask. If For instance, I'm a child who experienced divorce because my parents divorced. And so my outlook on marriage, my outlook on divorce is different from my husband's because he didn't have that experience. So yeah, we've had to talk about that. We've had to talk about what I want, what I don't want, what I'm accepting of, what I'm not accepting of, things of that nature. And those are really hard conversations because people sometimes feel like you're assuming that this is going to happen, and it's not that. And I don't think that you should have conversations about this often, like every day, every week. I think they should just naturally come up. But I think that they're important to have, especially before you get married. But if you're married, I don't think what's the problem in having them. I just don't think you want to railroad someone with all these topics. But I think it's important because I think someone should know your mind frame at this moment in regards to these topics and how you would navigate an obstacle such as this, or how you would avoid, because we want to avoid, having these huge arguments that could lead to divorce. That's the purpose of my podcast. Arguments in themselves are necessary because two people need to understand each other. But the explosive ones that just leave you in two different bedrooms are not necessary. They will happen, but they don't have to be necessary. And I think that that's the thing that's lacking in culture, American culture. For one, is like, we need more people who are going to tell us, teach us, and show us how to stay married, because it is hard work, right? It is hard work. All right. So those are my 5 must-have conversations to have with your spouse or significant other. As you know, I love to leave you guys with a quote. So today's quote is just so simple. And here it is. A successful marriage requires falling in love many times, always with the same person. With that being said, let's continue to grow. Let's continue to love. And let's continue to stay married.